morning and welcome to Left, Right and Centre. Our ongoing focus on the aftermath of the devastating floods in Chennai and indeed all of Tamil Nadu. Things marginally better today. The rain held back a little. The sun came out. Waters are receding but not quickly enough. The forecast is still not lifted. At least 260 people have died across the state since October because of incessant rain. Where did the state government and civic authorities go wrong all these weeks? Why did the situation reach crisis point? We'll discuss that on Left, Right and Centre. Also on the show tonight, the juvenile accused in the December 2012 Nirbhaya rape case, who just turned 21, will not be released in a complete sense. He'll be sent to an NGO instead, where he will receive vocational training. Is this a compromise of sorts between a legal system that says those who are convicted as juveniles get a chance at reform and leading a normal life after release, and voices like those of Nirbhaya's parents, who believe he should have been tried and convicted as an adult for his crime? We'll speak to the parents on the show as well. But first, of course, as we said, our focus on what's going on in Chennai. My colleagues Uma Sudhir and Tejas Mehta are joining me live on this show from there. But before we go across to them, let's also give you a sense of the extent of the devastation. My colleague Sudhiranjan Sen has been travelling with the Air Force on some of their sorties as well.
Chennai is a picture of gloom, a vast mass of water, only a few houses stick out.
The sortie will go over the worst affected areas in Chennai and around. And it is after that the air effort that the Indian Air Force has launched using its Cheetah, Chetaks, its Mi-17 helicopters and the C-17s and the C-130s will be directed to.
With water reaching up to the second story, boats are the only way out. The Army, Navy and the National Disaster Force are rushing in more boats. Those who are lucky are trying to make it to high ground on foot. High voltage lines damaged and much of them underwater. These distressing images indicate the enormity of the flooding. Thousands of people here are marooned. This is Chennai Airport. The central line is barely visible. Most of the airport is still underwater. It will be days before anything moves from here. Hundreds are stuck here. The Tambaram base, one of the few airfields around Chennai that is still operational. While loaded helicopters with relief make sortie after sortie dropping food material, stranded passengers are being flown to this airbase on helicopters from various locations, including the Chennai airport. The IAF is ferrying people to this base. A group of students at the SRM University who have been stuck here for the last several days because the airport has been shut are now being flown out towards Delhi. How many days are you stuck for?
3 days.
3 days. So you're happy to get out?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Nearly 200 people have been taken to safer locations today from Chennai. More are likely to follow. The Indian Air Force's only worry, the weather. With camera person Sachin Kumar in Chennai, Sudhiranjan Sen for NDTV.
Well, my colleague Tejas Mehta now joins us live from Mylapore in Chennai as well. Tejas, tell us what's going on the ground around you at this point in time. We've been saying things are marginally better today, but the city is still underwater.
Absolutely. All these until yesterday, until this morning, until this evening rather, I was on the other side of Chennai because there was almost an invisible line where one could not cross because there was so much water in various points that you just could not come to this side of town. Now the water levels in certain parts of Chennai have certainly come down. Even in the worst areas we saw in the morning and in the evening today, and it has certainly come down. That is not the worry, but the pace at which it is coming down, that is what is really crucial. Also, at this point of time, the army really putting in far more personnel to rescue operations. Until now, 7 columns were there, 4 more will come in. They've In total, along with the Air Force, the civic body and the NDRF, a total of 40,000 civilians have been rescued. But you know, Maya, there's one thing which we saw in be it irrespective of socio-economic backgrounds that people come from. They don't want to leave their home. Certainly, that's the entire point of a home, that you want to stay there. But when it comes to your life, when the army is coming, calling out, today we went for a rescue operation in a relatively posh area of Defence Colony, and there were many people who simply were refusing to leave their homes for whatsoever reason. They were repeatedly telling them there are more chances of heavier rainfall coming. You're right near the Adyar River. It can once again inundate your homes. It can be dangerous, but still, those people did not want to leave. And that was the case in other, slum areas or little poorer areas of Chennai too, where the water is very, very high and they still refuse to leave. Of course, the question is, for poorer people, where do they go? There have been shelters which have been made by the government. People are going there. But for people who are well off, they certainly can go to hotels or to, other, which of course is a difficulty finding in Chennai at this point of time, but you can go to other cities, you can make do, you can find friends, but you need to evacuate. That's the key point. Also, the fear of disease is certainly there, because remember, this is water and this is Chennai, this is South India. It gets very, very hot even during during what we call winter here. It's always generally hot. So the fear of epidemics is certainly high, and that's something the civic body needs to do. Lots of complaints we have heard throughout, even in Mylapore, which is a reasonably well-off area. There's water logging for the past 4 days. There's no electricity there. One person comes and tells us, and nobody has at all come to really help people out. Of course, the priority will be in areas which are worst affected, but be it citizen groups, be it councillors, be it MLAs, they are the ones who need to really, ask their men, ask the administration to reach out to people.
Right, Tejas,
Maya?
thanks very much for joining us for that. Uma Sudhir also with us. It's very tricky to get you guys on live on the show because the signals are so tricky as well. Uma, give us a sense of where you are, what's happening around you now.
Maya, I'm here in Periyamedu area of Chennai, which is also affected as every other part perhaps of Chennai. This is an area where we are talking about water logging happening, and if we are talking about power not being there, power has not been there here either for the last 3 days, but just about 100 feet away from here. In fact, about 10 days ago, when the earliest spate of rains had happened, at that time they had in fact tried to restore power, and there was a case of electrocution that happened at that particular point in time. We in fact have had to shift locations twice, not only because there is no power and the connectivity is so poor, but also because of the fact that there is a lot of anger among the people. They feel that the politicians and the leaders who represent them have not come over and they have not been visited. Their rescue teams have not come in. Many people here telling us that water is not available. They're getting water very, very expensive. Water is very expensive. Essential commodity is very expensive.
Well, yeah, I think it's costing about 100 rupees a can, and it's not even available. Even if you're ready to pay 200 rupees, they don't want to give you the water. And because there's no power, you cannot operate your thing to fill up the tank. And if there is no water in the tank, how are you going to wash yourself? And not only see, the major thing is, once again, I'm not going to blame nobody. I'm not going to blame no politicians, no government. The problem once again is this, that everybody have to do their bit in order to bring, see, why the anger happened over there, I was there. The thing is that somebody lost a life over there. Why? Because of carelessness. That shouldn't happen. We have to change before we change others. Now, why the problem? You see, the flood is happening because the water is not draining in the drainage.
In fact, yes, that's right. Many such issues, water not draining. I in fact also want to show a family here, in fact, who have moved out of their home but have nowhere to go. They are virtually on the road with no water, no supplies at all. நீங்க இங்க எப்பல இருந்து உட்கார்ந்துட்டு இருக்கீங்க? யாரே உங்கள்ட்ட வந்தாங்களா? சாப்பாடு அது இல்ல இங்க இருந்து எங்க போங்க?
யாரும் வரல, யாரும் சாப்பாடுலாம் வந்து குடுத்துட்டு போறாங்க. இன்னும் வந்து கூட கேட்க மாட்டாங்க. ஆனா எல்லாம் வண்டியில குடுத்துட்டு போனா அவங்க சாப்பிட்டு கிடக்குறாங்க. ஆனா மயிலங்காத்துல கூட இவ்வளவு தூரம் தண்ணி இருக்குது. இன்னும் கூட வந்து பார்க்க மாட்டாங்க, கேட்க மாட்டாங்க. ஒரு ஸ்கூல்ல கூட தங்க வைக்க மாட்டாங்க. ஆனால் ரோட்டில் தான்
So this is the kind of situation that many people are facing, but the good news is that it has not rained so much today after the unprecedented rains that happened day before yesterday. Today has been a relief, but Chennai also has to worry about the waters that are coming from all the areas around because all the reservoirs are full. But the fact is that it has not rained today, and therefore people are hoping that it is just the flooding that they will have to deal with and the health risks that they will have to deal with. Rescue operations still going on full scale, but of course the administration perhaps has not been able to match up the kind of scale of flooding that has happened over the last couple of days. Back to you.
Right, Uma, thanks very much for joining us with that situation. Well, to talk about what's going on in Chennai, once again tonight we of course have Swati Tyagarajan in our studio. We're also being joined by Captain D.K. Sharma, the PRO of the Navy from Chennai. We have Khushbu Sundar, the spokesperson of the Congress, and Dr. K.P. Ramalingam, who's a member of parliament for the DMK from the Rajya Sabha. We're hopefully being joined from Hyderabad by Mr. Shashidhar Reddy as well, the former vice chairman of the National Disaster Management Agency. Captain Sharma, I want to ask you, because you know, yesterday we were talking to you about the fact that there had been attempts to make a naval air base operational 70 kilometers outside Chennai. Today my colleague Shri Ranjan Sen is also talking about how the Air Force is working, trying to make sure other spaces are also available for rescue and relief work. What's the latest you can tell us on that front?
Good evening, Maya. I must tell you that since today morning, 2 C-17s with 99 and 87 passengers have already left for Begumpet. As we are talking right now, there is a Air India Airbus which is already landed at Rajali Air Base, and now we are waiting for the passengers which are coming from all places of Chennai. So this is insofar as making the air bridge is concerned. That is established now, that is working. Now it all depends how the passengers are going to come to that place.
Right.
So insofar as Navy is concerned, or the preparations and arrangements are concerned, we are on to it, and it has been 2 lots of people have gone to Begumpet. And also I must tell you that our ship INS Airavat has already entered harbour. 2 ships have left Vizag, and they are full of the disaster relief bricks, which includes food, water, medicines, divers, boats. Tremendous amount of relief effort is left Visakhapatnam, and they also will be reaching Chennai tomorrow evening. But the point is now the focus is on making sure that all this relief reaches the last man.
Right.
The challenge lies there, and we will be there, and I can assure you that all the 3 elements of the service are now switching gears, so that all the rescue which needs medicines to be reaching the patient. There are medicines available, there is food available, but how do you make sure that it reaches the remotest corner? So our focus will remain on rescue, providing succor, relief, medicines, so that every man is looked after.
Before I bring in our other panelists, I'd like to ask you, you know, time and time again when we see a situation like this, whether it's floods, whether it's an earthquake, a landslide, a natural disaster of some kind, state machineries, whether it's political or civic, administrative, seem to come to a grinding halt. There's almost like a crippling effect these disasters have on them, and inevitably we fall back upon our armed forces to come to the rescue in situations like this. A lot of your work in the country today is about these kinds of operations. What are the hindrances you find when you go into states like Tamil Nadu, anywhere for that matter, where a situation like this happens, and the civic backup to your work is non-existent maybe?
Maya, that's a very tricky question for me to attack, but one of our roles embedded is a benign role, which is HADR, Humanitarian Assistance and Disaster Relief. We are trained for that.
Right.
We are equipped for that. Like whenever a ship is there, and you must recall the sequence of events which happened in Yemen. One of our ships was just diverted.
Right.
So we are equipped for that, we are trained for that, but I won't be able to comment on all these things which you are saying.
Okay, let's just bring in Mr. Shashidhar Reddy as well from Hyderabad, the former vice chairman of the National Disaster Management Agency. Sir, you're looking at what's going on in Chennai right now, across Tamil Nadu. In your experience of having handled these disasters, is there anything that could and should have been done differently in the last few weeks?
Well, I think this has been building up for the last 20 days or so, but what happened on the final day, which this huge deluge was something unprecedented, irrespective of the kind of warnings that have come from the IMD, I'm sure, and this is something I'm reminded of what happened in Uttarakhand. IMD makes predictions, but you know, when we are particularly dealing with very small areas, you know, extensive long-term prediction forecast, medium-term forecast, what is required in an urban scenario is now casting, and also, you know, I don't know how efficiently the Doppler weather radar in Chennai is working, because the NDMA came out with national guidelines, which we released in 2010.
Right.
We had brought out all these things, and I think the Doppler radar, you know, can give you 3 to 6 hours of lead time on where it's going to rain and how much it's going to rain, and then it needs to be backed up. I think what is lacking in Chennai and in most cities, except maybe Mumbai and Guwahati is catching up, is the automatic weather stations at every one in every 4 square kilometers, where you should be able to get real-time data on rainfall. So all these things are essential to deal with this kind of a situation, and this is always a challenge. And going back to what you going to what you said earlier when talking to the captain of how the civil administration comes to almost a standstill. You know, the people who are officials, government officials, when a disaster like this happens, are stuck in their homes looking after their families, their own safety. So certainly, you know, we need people from outside, and the army has always been there. All the wings of the army have played a great role in every rescue operation, major rescue operation in this country. And of course, this is in addition to what the NDRF itself has been doing over the years. So I think it's the good thing today was that the only rainfall, very slight little rainfall that we've had was outside Chennai, about 3 millimeters in Neyveli. Hope this stays this way. Water will be slow to recede. The problems are going to be there, but I'm sure Tamil Nadu has fine officers who've had a lot of experience during the tsunami going back to 2004.
Right.
And expertise is available. They should be able to deal with the situation, be it reaching out essential supplies to the people, healthcare and things like that.
Right. Captain Sharma, you want to make a quick interjection?
I want to reassure everybody who's watching this program, and more so the people of Tamil Nadu and Chennai, that we are only going to scale up the rescue efforts. We are not going anywhere. Need be, more ships will come, more people will come, more boats will come, more divers will come. Rest be assured, we are there.
Right, and I think that's an assurance that the people of Chennai would certainly be happy to hear about today. From the DMK and from the Congress, we have Khushbu and we have Dr. KP Ramalingam. Today one of the questions that is being asked is what happened? Why, in your assessment, do you think that the state machinery actually came to this grinding halt? One of the reasons we've heard is that even the officers themselves are actually trapped in their own homes and are limited by what is going on around them. But, were warnings not paid attention to, Khushbu?
This is not the time to start the blame game, because I think we can wait for that. First, let's work with the relief work. The rescue operations is in full swing. I must say a huge salute and respect to the National Relief and the Army and the Navy Department, who have been actually completely jeopardizing their lives and jumping in every place and nook and corner, helping the people, rescuing them. And even the citizens of the city, I must say, the spirit of Chennai, we have never seen this before, but this time, I think everybody is on the streets. They're not bothered as to where they are going, what they are doing, where they come from, but everybody is on the streets trying to help each other, sending foods, arranging for foods, volunteering and giving them blankets and mats and trying to rescue people. So I think that spirit is to be applauded right now. The blame game can wait. We can wait once the operations are over, once the people are evacuated, once they are on the safe land. I think then we will look into it. Yes, there has been a huge disaster management by the government of AIDMK, which nobody can deny. The worst was the warnings were given 10 days back, but no heeds were paid to it. And even the reservoir water from the Cheramambakam lake was just opened and left open for the people. Now what we see the flooding in so many areas is because there was no prior warning to the people living in those areas. So that is what has affected the most. It was just without a warning where they had opened the water from the Chembrambakam reservoir.
Right. Okay. Dr. Ramalingam, do you agree with Khushbu on this, that the time for the blame game is not now? Let's focus on rescue and relief, and then the assessments and reviews will be done later.
Yes, I do. Definitely, madam, but it is not a time to blame the state government at all. Even the state government officials, how can they come out? There is the captain also told, some others also told. Even, but the state government can utilize the other districts, that is Salem, Namakkal, Karur, district officials has to be diverted for this work. I think they are too, they will do it. Right. But anyhow, the central government acted very fast, and then disaster management and then military and paramilitary forces are now doing wonderful work. But this has to be cooperated by the public also. The blaming everybody, it's not a question now. This is not after time to blame state government or any officials. But this is a time to help to one and all. Even I appeal to the corporates, I appeal to the industrialists. They must come forward to work for the people. This is the time now. We should not depend on only by the government or the central government forces. Everybody has to be come for it. Then instead of giving a big amount to the election fund to the political parties, these industrialists and corporate people has to come forward to serve for the people.
Out as
this is the time.
Okay. Swati, also today we've seen that the Prime Minister has offered 1,000 crore rupees. Relief from the centre to the state.
Offered,
you wanted to ask. One moment, Dr. Ramalingam.
This is a welcoming factor, madam.
Yeah. Dr. Ramalingam, my colleague Swati wants to ask you a question as well. Just a moment, sir.
No, it's to both Mr. Ramalingam and Khushbu. I completely agree that this is absolutely not the time for a blame game, and I think there's plenty of blame to generally go around if we start, from urban development right down to how we've handled the disaster. But it's more a general question of, we had the tsunami. One of the things we learned in the tsunami was that if we had an early warning system or a better way to disseminate information, a lot of the damage that happened during the tsunami might have been averted. But since then, I'm not saying that this could have been predicted at all, but it has been pretty severe rain for over the couple of weeks. But I'm just saying, in terms of even half a tragedy of this scale, to just have a certain anticipation of it, because one of the things we heard from all our reporters on the ground in various areas from the people was that they were never informed when the waters were going to be released from the reservoirs, so they couldn't predict when the river would go into spate, so they couldn't quite decide if should they leave their homes or should they stay in their homes.
In fact,
yeah, and they didn't even know when the water was released, if it was during high tide or low tide.
Yeah. Khushbu, take that, because that's an important, that's an important point. Yeah.
This is what exactly I was saying. There was no pre-warning to the people in those areas. When you're releasing the water almost to the extent of 50,000 cc, I think people should have been informed. This was done overnight. So overnight you have water of 50,000 cc released from the reservoir, and the people are not been informed about it. So yes.
Sorry to intervene, Mr. Khushbu, madam. This is not agreeable, madam, because that the people are watching it, but how much quizzes water is inflow to the lake, they cannot predict it. No, there's a heavy rain, so they have to open.
No. The thing is, when you're releasing the water from the reservoirs,
otherwise lake
they have been warning.
So
I think
Mr. Ramalingam sir, that is what I'm saying. Ramalingam is getting me wrong. No, Mr. Ramalingam, you are getting me wrong.
Dr. Ramalingam and Khushbu.
Otherwise, they can't decide all those things.
One at a time.
Mr. Ramalingam, you're absolutely right. The authorities the authorities had no choice. Of course, they had to release the water because you couldn't have a breach in your reservoir. Then your tragedy would have been in a bigger scale. You're absolutely right on that.
Absolutely.
That is not the question. I think what Khushbu and I essentially were trying to say is that a system has to be in place where in a situation like this, there is a proper warning system.
Plus, by the time the water reaches,
by
the time the water reaches, you have couple of hours in your hand.
And also in a question in a city like Chennai, the ocean is there. So are the releases of water coinciding with low tide and high tide? Because the one reason of releasing the water into the river is in a few hours we know that it will drain into the ocean. But if it's released at a different time and high tide or low tide is at a different time, if it's high tide, it's going to push the water right back.
Okay.
So I think these are the questions that are being asked, not whether the water should have been released or not.
If I could just bring in Captain Sharma and if I can just bring in Captain Sharma and Dr. Reddy.
Also, madam, our people won't leave their residence.
Dr. Ramalingam, if I could just bring in our rescue experts here into this as well. You know, Captain Sharma, before I go to Mr. Shashidhar Reddy as well, you know, this argument takes place every time there's a natural disaster that takes place in a state. The state machinery is questioned. We saw it happen in Srinagar when the floods happened last year. You know, what did the government do? We've seen it happen in Uttarakhand when the cloudburst happened, you know, a couple of years ago. It's the same pattern of questioning, no matter where it happens. And yet, you have examples, for example, like Orissa, what happened when Cyclone Phylon happened and the warning systems were in place, there was a different response.
Again, a tricky question. I will not take it.
You will not take it. All right, Mr. Reddy?
Yes, I was very much involved
in the Orissa effort, yes.
Yes. And then, you know, it's altogether a different scenario. You know, cyclone warning, we have come to such a level of specialized warning capability that we are able to predict the path of the cyclone, the intensity, the wind speed, the wave height, everything is can be predicted, and IMD has done a great job during Phylene. Internationally, there were apprehensions that it can be very disastrous and thousands will die, but you know, we were able to control it to 23. So that's a different thing. I am reminded today what I have seen in Chennai. I am reminded of Uttarakhand. You know, the kind of water that came down, the rain in 24-hour period. In fact, most of it came down in less than 24 hours. So this is a situation where we need we need to look above the traditional early warning system. We need a better coordination between the hydrological agencies, that the CWC, which is responsible for monitoring the reservoirs, the release of water, the inflow into the reservoirs. We have excellent lessons from other disasters. Unfortunately, what happens is, be it the media, be it the electronic media, the newspapers, the leadership, people, everybody are talking only about this disaster. When it happens, then everybody, even the administration, we forget about it. And then you know, what I would expect, I would request the Tamil Nadu government to do is now set up a committee, look into this, look at case studies, what happened in similar situations in other places, what happened in Mumbai, what happened in other places, what happened in Uttarakhand, what are the lessons to be learned, and then integrate all this into a disaster management plan. You know, you have a plan, you have to update it depending on the experience, this experience and other experiences as well.
Okay, all right. I know we have to wrap, but very quickly, if I could just ask Captain Sharma to come in with the final word on this, because you know, at the end of the day, you're handling these operations, but a lot of what we've talked about in terms of warning systems is technology driven, is equipment driven. The armed forces also has the tools sometimes to sort of assist in situations like this, beyond just the immediate rescue and relief effort. What Mr. Reddy is saying about maybe setting up something now to prepare yourselves better going forward in the event of another disaster anywhere in the country. What do you think the role should then be of the armed forces in that kind of an effort?
I have also, again reiterating that in our training it is ingrained. This is one part of it, like fighting the war, diplomatic role, I am talking about the Navy.
Right.
And then constabulary roles, and then this is the HADR is the benign role.
Right.
But, you know, as and when we are called for to, you know, button or plug in, we are ready for that, and you have seen it in the last 2 days, the number of resources which have been, you know, diverted at a short notice. It is in itself commendable.
Right.
From, you know, thousands of kilometers, things have been moved.
Right. And I think everyone's still relying on all of you to come and sort of help out as
once again, I would like to say that this is not going to get over.
We are there.
We are going up to the last mile, and you will see it happening.
Right, and as we've also been saying that there are flights that are operating from some of these places, but only for those who are stranded and need to get out in an emergency. There's a very strict guideline for those who are going to be allowed to get on any of these flights at this point in time also, I presume. Thank you all very much for joining me on this discussion. We also have a special interview with Vikram Kapoor, who's been in the center of the storm because he's the commissioner and been really sort of at the forefront of fighting this war against the floods in Chennai. Let's go listen to him.
Civic, the residents in many areas are saying, couldn't you have made announcements, couldn't you have told us that Chembrambakam is overflowing or you're going to release waters from there? Was that possible? Should it have been done?
It was done. It was done. In fact, all the low-lying areas which were likely to be inundated, they were evacuated, not just this time, but even 15 days ago. In fact, on one night alone, we were able to evacuate nearly 30,000 people. This time around as well, so many people were evacuated. Today, if you see, I have some 62,000 people in 97 camps. My immediate priority, number one, is to rescue people in distress, and we are already doing that. Number two is to provide them relief in terms of food. We are doing almost in a day. Yesterday we provided about 9 lakh food packets. Today we may even surpass that number. Third is to provide them safety. Of course, 97 relief centers are there. If more are required, we are ready to provide that all. We need to now prevent a health epidemic. For the past 1 month, the corporation has been leaving no stone unturned. We've cleaned up streets every time the water has receded. We've bleached and sprinkled lime on streets. We've cleaned up the tanks and sumps to prevent any water contamination.
Right. Also, my colleague Rahul Srivastav has spoken to the Women and Child Development Minister, also an environmentalist, Menaka Gandhi, who has blamed the floods and the excess rain in Tamil Nadu and also the pollution that's taking place in Delhi on climate change. All this as world leaders are gathered in Paris to find ways to combat this pressing issue.
Now, in Chennai, what has happened is, of course, it's climate warming. The moment you have the weather change and you have even 1 degree difference, then it will rain more and more and more.
And the severity of it.
No, and from now for the next 10 years, there will be raining all the time, more and more in unexpected places. So either we gear up. Nobody has connected climate change with economic disaster. Everybody keeps thinking, oh, we can do wonderful things economically, but climate change, kabhi barish aayegi.
Right, we'll take a break at that. When we come back, we'll shift focus, shift gears onto the other big story we're discussing today. The juvenile in the Nirbhaya rape case has turned 21. He will not be released into the public, but will be sent to an NGO for vocational training. What are the reactions to that? After a break.